Awesome. So the goal of today's session, once again, is how do you sell GitLab? At the end of this 1 hour, I'm going to talk you through what's the opportunity in the team that you joined. So when you joined GitLab, what does that mean for you? All right. So we'll talk about where we're going as a company and how you fit in. And then we're going to talk about our product, some of our competition and pricing, and ultimately answer the question of why would someone want to buy GitLab? Okay. All right. So what is GitLab? We are both promising and developing. Do you remember Zion Williamson, Trisha?
Pardon?
Do you remember Zion Williamson, the
Yeah.
basketball player? He's like the #1 overall draft pick, right?
Hmm.
So when not like today's Zion Williamson, but almost like the buzz of Zion Williamson when he came out of Duke, right? So that's what we mean by being promising and developing. So I want to talk about this a little bit more. Over here, we have a diagram of everything that we do. What the heart means is that we're one of the best in the entire industry at this. What the circle means is that we're pretty good at it. For many businesses, this is all you need. For the half circle, we're decent at it. If you want like a real robust solution, you might want to go with something else. Okay. And the quarter circle is we're just getting started. So what's the most common shape that you see in this diagram?
Circle.
Circle. What about you, Jessica?
The half circle.
Half circle. Okay, so let's see. Over here, you can see right now we're at 3 hearts. We are at 11 circles. We are at 32 half circles. Okay, so Jessica, you are right. And then 7 quarter circles. So that's where our product is right now. But where are we going, right? The goal of GitLab is to be a single application for software engineers and developers and all sorts of different technical professionals. And 1 year in the future, we want to have 15 hearts. We want to have 32 whole circles and 11 half circles. Okay. So this is the promise of GitLab. We want to be this one application for basically all of knowledge workers, and our product is only going to get better and better. Okay. So going a little bit more into the history of GitLab, we IPO'd around October of 2021. And when we IPO'd, we were one of the most valuable tech companies in our space from like a multiple perspective. So Jessica, you probably remember this, but it's like Snowflake was hitting all these records, right?
Yep.
We were actually trading at around 85x revenue at a certain point in time, which is basically crazy. What ended up happening is when tech corrected, we came down like everyone else. And so after we IPO'd, the company raised a lot of money. And then what we are doing is we are using that money to staff up, to get engineers. And one of the big goals is to complete this product. As we complete this product, the benefit and the value of GitLab only increases and increases. And that's the reason why we have such an ambitious engineering roadmap. Okay. So that's what I mean, both promising and developing. We're developing from a product perspective. We're promising in the sense that when we IPO'd, there was a reason why GitLab was once one of the most expensive companies of all time from multiple perspectives, is that people really saw the benefit of having a single application. Okay. So there was a lot of enthusiasm, and right now we are trying to prove that enthusiasm. Okay. So other things about us, we only sell one product. And our goal is that in the next 3 years to get to 1 billion in revenue. Does anyone know our current revenue right now? So we're around half of that. We're at around like $500 million. Okay. All right. So Trisha, sometimes you sell something that no one's ever heard of before. Sometimes you sell something that is pretty well known. So one thing that y'all should know is GitLab is very famous. Okay. So I'll just give you some charts over here. Forrester, Gartner, they have us like top right quadrant. So GitLab, Gartner. Here's another example. So as you can see, GitLab literally is in the top right. Okay, so we are talking about a company that people know that has good brand recognition. And the question now is, can we leverage our post-IPO enthusiasm, complete the product, and continue to win this market, considering that we have great advantages right now? Okay. Okay, so let's just talk realistically about where we are in the market today. One way in which you can see market data is if we type in the number of jobs that are looking for us versus our competitors. Okay. So right now, if I type in GitLab into this one job post in the United States, I see 5,200 jobs. Okay. So competitor number 2, Jenkins, 13,000 jobs. What does that tell you about the size of Jenkins versus us, Trisha?
That it's larger.
It's much bigger, right? Now, here's one of our other competitors, GitHub. What's this say about our relative market position, Jessica?
GitHub's definitely bigger.
Yeah, right? So here's the situation that we're in. We are a visionary. We've been identified as a leader. And right now, what we're trying to do is we're still the smaller player. We've been growing at around 70% year over year for many years. This is our market to grab. Okay, so that's the position that we're in. We are taking accounts from Jenkins, from Atlassian. We are the one that's expanding right now. Okay. All right, so what does GitLab do? It's a single application. We try to do everything. If you're a developer, if you're in operations, if you're in security, if you are in project management, if you're in product management, we want to have capabilities for you, okay? And I want to talk a little bit about how this actually works, all right? So when I was an engineer, I worked on this thing where our goal is, so let me, where's Brewery? Inside. So actually, let me start out with the story. Okay. So a couple of years ago, I went inside one of the biggest breweries in the United States. And I was expecting thousands of workers moving boxes around, working machinery. And what I found out was that there really weren't any workers in the factory at all. Basically, there was a bunch of tour guides, there were tourists, but everything was automated in big conveyor belts. Okay. So if something like brewing beer is automated, do we want more or less automation for something like software development? What do you all think?
More, for sure.
More. Okay. So why? Why do we want more automation in software development and delivery?
Because the businesses are demanding more automation and doing more with less. So we need to meet that challenge.
Exactly, right? So this is what most people do. And this is what I did when I was an engineer. When I was an engineer, I worked for Red Hat, and we used GitHub as one tool. And then that talked with another tool called Jenkins, which then triggered a job called Ansible Tower, which also used Terraform. We deployed to AWS and this thing called OpenShift. And then we also stored artifacts in Docker Hub. So this is a bit of a simplified diagram, but what we did was we had one tool talk to the next tool, 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 which talked to the next tool, which talked to the next tool. All right. And like you said, Jessica, we want to have as much automation in this as possible. So what do? We try to stitch all these tools together and create one gigantic piece of automation, right? So here's the thing. The company that made GitHub is different than the company that made Ansible Tower. The company that made Ansible Tower is different than the company that made Docker Hub, right? So what you have to do to stitch all this together is an engineer needs to come in and write custom code to get this tool to talk with this tool, 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 this one, and this one, this one, okay? So this is a bit of a simplified diagram, but I want you to understand that there are many tools here. And what happens when we have more tools? Do we spend more money or less money? What do y'all think?
Spend more money.
Spend more money, okay? The more tools that we have, if you're a VP of engineering, do you now need to talk with more sales teams or less sales teams?
More sales teams.
Okay, so you have more renewals. Okay, so the more tools that I have. So we talked about how I have to write custom code to get these tools to work together. Each of these is called an integration. Okay, if I have more tools, do I have to spend more time or less time getting all these tools to work together?
More time.
Okay. Every once in a while, I need to update one of these platforms. So I might update OpenShift 3.2 to 3.3. All right, every time I do that, I have to turn this off. I have to run my upgrade cycle, which takes a lot of time. Then I have to turn it back on. This is usually really stressful. That's why engineers usually do it at like 2 a.m. All right. So from a maintenance perspective, do I have more tools? The more tools that I have, do I have to do more or less maintenance?
More maintenance.
Okay. All right. Oh, so tools, they break sometimes, just like any platform breaks sometimes, right? So if Ansible Tower goes down for some reason, could be any reason, what happens to my automation? Does it continue working or is there a problem? Ansible Tower goes down.
The problem, it'll break the rest of the process behind it.
Yeah. And then so when I was an engineer, around 15% of the time, I'd wake up to 4, 5, 6 Slack messages. And it would be like, Chris, I don't have my build artifacts. You need to go into Jenkins to find out why this isn't working. All right. So I want you to understand this is a very realistic scenario that this may not work around 15% of the time. All right. So the more tools that you have, the more complicated it is, which means that the more outages you have. All right. And then ultimately, what that means is that you have unhappy developers that are angry. All right. So when I was an engineer, around 15% of the time, I'd wake up, all these Slack messages, Chris, go fix this. Okay. All right. One more. From a hiring perspective, it's very time consuming to find developers that know all your tools. The more tools that you have, does this make hiring more or less complicated? You now need to go find engineers that know GitHub, Jenkins, Ansible Tower, Terraform, AWS, OpenShift, and Docker Hub. Is that pretty rare? So what do you think?
Yeah, it makes it more difficult because it's a little more rare to find someone who's proficient in every single one of those platforms.
Mm-hmm. And then one more. So training. I used to sell training packages at my previous employer. Each training package usually cost around $3,000. So if I have more tools, do I have to buy more or less training packages for my developers? What do y'all think?
A lot more.
A lot more. Okay. All right. So what is GitLab? GitLab, the goal of it is to be a single application. So we want to be this entire thing. Okay. So the value is save money, talk to less sales teams. You don't have to deal with as much integrations, less stuff to maintain, less outages. Your hiring profile is simpler. You have less tools for your teams to train on. everything gets simpler if you go onto a single application. Okay. So that's what GitLab is. We're not there yet. We already talked about that. That being said, many sales folks that I've talked with at our company still say that the value that we have right now has made GitLab one of the easiest things that they've had to sell in their entire career. Okay. So even though the product's not done yet, there's still a lot of value in what we bring to the table right now. Okay. And once again, our goal is to get there quickly. So this is a chart of everything that we're implementing in the product every year. In 2016, we added these things. 2017, we added these things. Okay. And just to recap, what we're trying to do is to consolidate what we call a tool chain. So in most organizations, you have GitHub, which talks to Jenkins, which talks to Terraform, which then talks to Ansible Tower, which then talks to Docker Hub. You have this big crazy tool chain. If one of these things shuts down, your tool chain runs into problems. Okay. And we want to be that single platform. All right. And one of the analogies we like to use is that it's kind of like the iPhone. So what I mean by this is, how many times do you leave your house, go somewhere, and you don't have your phone on you?
Almost never,
Why not?
because my phone's important.
Why?
It's my only method of communication to
Okay.
pretty much anybody.
Right? It's become essential. And the goal is that as we complete this product, this just becomes more and more essential, right? For project management, essential. For SCM, essential. For automation, essential. For DevSecOps, essential. Okay. All right. So why should someone buy GitLab? All right. So in short, better software faster, more secure software faster, right? That's our tagline. Other way of talking about it is three main value drivers. One thing that's important to understand is that it comes from the fact that we're a single application. So in other words, we have differentiators that are very, 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 very hard for other companies to try to reproduce. Most companies try to win this category of like win like a single category, right? They want to win the SaaS space. They want to win the DaaS space, right? Our advantages come from the fact that we're a platform. Okay. So what are some of the three advantages that we bring? Number one, we'll make you more efficient. In today's world, just like you said, Jessica, people are being asked to do more with less, and we can help them to do that. Number two, deliver better products faster. A lot of engineering teams are under a lot of pressure. With GitLab, we can help them to meet their goals. Okay. Number three, reduce security and compliance risk. One of the very exciting things about GitLab is that we can help out basically every single one of your accounts. Okay. So a lot of times you'll sell something, an account will, not need it. If you have software, which is basically everyone, then you have value for something like GitLab. Okay. All right, so now let's talk about some of the caveats. So what we mean by this is the negative things, all right? So number one is it's important for us to realize that we are fundamentally countercultural, okay? So what I mean by this is having a tool chain is what everyone does. If you go around San Francisco and talk to all those tech people, they have a tool chain. All right. And then to go into someone and say, hey, we can replace your tool chain, that's a crazy idea. Most people don't think like that. Okay. It's just not normal. Other things, you probably could have guessed this already, but realistically, in this scenario, they might have just signed a 1 year with this vendor, a 2-year contract with this vendor, 1 year with this vendor. And then so when you go in and say, hey, we can replace all of your stuff, the knee-jerk reaction is, well, we're already paying for half of this stuff. So I don't want to replace everything, right? Like we just like renewed. Okay. So in a situation like this, the messaging that we can use is, hey, you want to continue using Docker Hub? That's awesome. We don't have to replace everything. All right. So if you want to just start with replacing some of these things, we can meet you where you're at. You can continue using Docker Hub with us. That's cool. We'll integrate with what you're currently at. Okay. So one of the pushbacks that you'll see a lot of the time is, hey, we are stuck on this one tool. Okay. And then the answer for that is, that's awesome that you want to continue using blank. A lot of our customers use GitLab and blank together, right? This is especially true with things like Jira, right? A lot of our customers use Jira and GitLab, okay? And we integrate with the vast majority of the tools that they currently have. You can use them together, okay? The last thing that I want to talk about is a lot of people, so when you're prospecting to accounts, Trisha, a lot of times people will say, you work at GitLab. That's cool. I love GitLab. But we already have an SCM solution. Okay. What they mean by that is most people think that we do this, that we're a solution for holding code in the cloud. What they don't realize is that we do all of this. Okay. So in other words, let me say this again. Most people know about us. A lot of people have a positive feeling about us. The vast majority of people have a misunderstanding of what our product does. They think that we are a code storage solution. They don't realize that we're a platform for software development and delivery. Okay. All right. Can I help clarify anything? Or what do y'all think? Anything jump out at you? What surprises you? What do y'all think?
It says the web page you shared that we have so much, strong to excellent proficiency across so many places. Yeah.
It's pretty cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Trisha? Anything jump out at you?
Not really, but I have noticed that people who have heard that I joined GitLab, they do see GitLab as just a coding repository rather than everything that you just mentioned there.
Yeah.
So you're right about people not understanding fully what we're capable of.
Yeah. And Trisha, one of the challenges is people aren't going to get excited about a code storage solution. People will get excited about a platform that is moving to do everything. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. So if we're trying to do everything, do we have a small number of competitors or a large number of competitors? What do you all think?
Definitely a large.
Okay. The reality of the situation is there's 4 main ones, and that's the dedicated session that we'll have later. And we have 1 primary competitor. So this is something that's become a lot more important for the company, is how do we compete with GitHub? Okay. And then we will have a dedicated session that goes into detail about GitHub. All right. Here's something else. Let's talk about our pricing tiers, right? So what is something that jumps out to you about our pricing tiers?
The fact that there's a free option.
Okay. So 1 year ago, when I was working on free user project, we had 9 million free SaaS users. Okay. So Trisha, one of our fundamental sales tactics is, hey, you're a free user. That's awesome. You're a valued member of the community. My name's Trisha, and my goal is to connect with users like yourself. Just wondering if you'd ever be interested in exploring some of the options in one of our paid tiers, right? So free to paid is one of our fundamental sales motions. What's something else that jumps out at you, Jessica, about our pricing?
The jump from premium to ultimates quite a bit in price.
Okay, so that's perfect, right? So usually your other tier might be 2x, it might be 70% more expensive. This is over 3 times as expensive. The main difference between premium and ultimate is our security scanning capabilities. And I just want to share with you a little bit more about this. So let's look at our competitor. If you want GitHub security scanning, it's $49 per month per user. All right. So that's what our competitor is doing. It's just this $50 difference. Okay. And so the reason why Ultimate's so much more expensive than Premium is Ultimate's better in basically many, many, many different ways. But one of the main reasons why is because it has better security scanning. Okay. And security scanning is just a very expensive thing right now. Okay, so there's two different versions of GitLab. One is software as a service. So let's actually just diagram this out. Okay, so let's just say you want GitLab, right? Some people, they want access to gitlab.com. What that means is they want to log in, right? They don't really care about who, like, all the infrastructure in the background about it. They just want their team to be able to log into gitlab.com, start using the application. All right. So that's what we call the SaaS solution. One thing to understand about this is that the computers that run this, they are in Google Cloud and they're managed by GitLab. Okay. So the customer does not touch these computers. Okay. But let's just say that you are a defense contractor. You are Lockheed Martin. All right. You make top secret nuclear missile code for super, super, super secret and very expensive defense projects. Do you trust your top secret code to go be managed by GitLab in Google Cloud? Or do you want to manage it yourself and hold it in your own computers? What do y'all think?
They'd manage it themselves, and maybe not even in a cloud, right?
Yeah, right. So that's completely correct. So they're not going to trust GitLab with their stuff. What they want is they want to have a top secret data center. Let's just say it's surrounded by barbed wire. You go through security, then you go down a bunch of flights of stairs. Once you go down all of these flights of stairs, then you have your own computers. You want your top secret code to go on here. Okay, so this is what we call self-hosted or on-prem. So Trisha, for you, this is a question that is part of our qualification for sales development. Okay, so this is something that we're asking when we're qualifying opportunities. All right, so we both have a SaaS tier. We also have a self-hosted tier. It's important for you all to understand that we are the dominant player in self-hosted. Okay, so right now, how the competitive market is working out is that GitHub has a lot of momentum in the SaaS space. All right, so they are the big player in the SaaS space. We are the big player in the self-hosted space. Okay. All right, cool. Can I help clarify anything, or else we'll jump into why buy GitLab? Okay, cool. So let's talk about operational efficiencies and delivering better products faster. Okay. So how do we do this? Part of how we do this is we help people to implement best practices. So here's the way that I describe this. What is this? Jessica, do you watch any sports, or like do you follow basketball or anything like that, football?
Yeah, I used to watch basketball and football.
Okay, cool. So in basketball, there are best practices, right? Are your people communicating well? Are you moving the ball? Are you like playing team basketball? So the best practices are not secrets. The question is, how do you get things like good communication, good leadership, right? It's the same thing with the engineering organization. The best practices are known. Question is, how do you actually get them? All right. So let's talk about some of these best practices. Number one, CI/CD. What is CI/CD? It's automation. All right. So over here, this is our pipeline. So this is one thing automated, then this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. What else do we have in here? a lot of test section. Okay. So maybe 40, 50, maybe even 60 things automated. And so how much time does this job take? Well, it actually takes 70 minutes and 6 seconds. So as opposed to an engineer running all of this stuff, he or she now has 70 minutes where they can go do something else. All right. And so this is the power of automation. It's going to speed up your engineers and it's going to give them time back so that they can do other things. Okay. So that's what we talk about with CI/CD. Another best practice is what we call DevSecOps. What this is you're writing new code, right? So I'll just share with you new code that's being written. So here is an example of new code that's being written. What is this about? Let's add in all of this green code. It's this thing called a merge request. Okay. If you want to add code into our project, you have to request to merge this new code in. Okay. So here's a merge request. This person's trying to add in this new code. People have a right to ask questions, and they do, right? And every time these merge requests come in, we're running pipelines. What are they doing? They're testing the software, running 127,000 tests, making sure it works. We're also scanning for security vulnerabilities, pretending like we're a hacker, trying to knock on each part of the application, see if we can break it, right? And things like code quality. So is this code written up to the quality standards that we expect for our organization, right? So that's what our automation's doing. What DevSecOps is, it's referring to the security scanning piece of this. Every time someone is merging in new code, then we are scanning it from a security perspective. Okay. So that's what we're talking about with DevSecOps. Okay. All right. The next thing is this thing called Agile. Agile is a way to design software. And I'm going to talk more about that in a bit. And here's the thing. Just like when you play basketball, if you have good leadership, good communications, everyone knows their role, and you have like defined role hierarchies, you have a big advantage over everyone, right? It's the same thing. If you have CI/CD, DevSecOps, and Agile, you have an advantage over your peers, okay? And the fact of the matter is GitLab makes this easy, all right? So this is our CI/CD, it's our automation. Whenever you hear CI/CD, think automation. This is also our DevSecOps. What it is our security scanning, okay? All right, so let's talk about Agile right now. One thing to understand about Agile is that a lot of people, they write software in this other way, which is kind of like, I want a website, okay? I'm going to come up with a design document, and it's going to say, I want my website to do A, B, and C. I want it to look like X, Y, and Z. Here's some pictures called mockups, right? Here's some diagrams about in the color scheme. I'm going to go give this to an engineer. Okay. So I pay the engineer $10,000 up front. I go away for 3 months, come back. He gives me the website. And then I pay him a little bit more. And then usually what ends up happening is I have suggestions for feedback. Well, I thought this icon looked good, this color, but I don't like it. I want you to change it like this. I want you to move this over here, and I have a new idea. I want you to add in this section, okay? So the original way that software was written is you give someone a design document, you go away, and you come back, all right? So it's kind of like building a house. I don't know if you've ever lived in a custom house, but imagine asking for a custom house. I want 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, this paint scheme. Here's the floor plan. Here's another bunch of documents. I want marble countertops. Okay. And then you give the builder the design document, you go away, you come back 9 months later, you have your house. Okay. But I have a question. What happens if the builder makes a mistake on the ground floor and you come back when the house is already built? What might have to happen if there's a problem with the foundation of the house?
Well, you can't do anything anymore because they've already built it.
Yeah,
And-
right. So Trisha, to fix it, you might have to rip off the second floor.
Yeah.
Right. You might have to rip off huge chunks of the house to be able to fix something in the foundation. So what people have found out is that this waterfall method of requesting something, going away and coming back, it's actually really inefficient. What we actually want is something called agile. And what agile is, it's a principle of iterations, really. So iteration number one, let's lay the foundation of the house. Okay, iteration number two, let's put up the wood planks. At the end of each iteration, the buyer comes back with the builder, and then they say, hey, is this what you like? Do you have any feedback for this? And a lot of times the builder or the buyer will say something like, you know what, now that you put up these wood planks, I thought that this window would be big enough, but now that I see it, I realize it's a bit too small. Can you make it bigger? Okay. So then they do that. They put in the electricity and the plumbing. The buyer comes back with the builder. Hey, does this look right for you? Well, now that I see it, I'd actually appreciate an additional light switch over here. And then they fix that before the entire house is built. Okay. So once again, agile is the principle of iteration. You're meeting with your stakeholders as you build the house. The reason why this is better is because if you have feedback, you fix it before everything else is built on top of it. Okay. So if this is actually like how an engineering team would work that's using agile, iteration number one, lay the foundation of my app. Iteration number two, fix the API. Iteration number three, fix the user interface. Iteration number four, fix the integrations. Okay. So it's an iterative manner for developing software, and GitLab makes this easy. Okay. Because we have all of the tooling if you want to do this at a high level. All right. So one more value driver that I want to talk about, which is communication. So Trisha, for you, this is really a senior director or above talk track. Okay. So I had a conversation with a guy who is now the senior vice president of Red Hat for engineering. And I sat down with him and I had this question for him. So I was like, Tim, you're in charge of 35 engineering teams. If there were one thing that if you could fix, what would you fix? Right? What is one thing that if you were to solve this issue, it would make like all of your team's job so much easier? Okay. And Tim paused for a bit and he said, you know what, Chris, one of the things that you see all the time is one team's working on this thing for 5 months. This other team built it 3 months ago. And if these teams were actually talking to each other, then they would have saved so much time. Okay. So something that's important for us to understand is a lot of engineering projects, they fail because of a lack of communication. There's many different reasons for this, but part of it is tooling. So let me just share a little bit about this. All right, so here's my tool chain. I have tool A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. And most of these tools, they cost money per user per month. Okay. And then so what most businesses do is they say, well, I don't want to overpay. So let's just give developers the access to these tools. Let's just give operations access to these tools. QA gets access to these tools, security gets access to these tools, and now DevOps gets access to these tools. Okay. So the challenge is if you're a developer, a lot of times you can't see what the QA team is doing. Why? Because they're working on a different platforms. Right? So imagine if you're trying to diagnose an issue, the issue's in Salesforce, the other team doesn't have access to Salesforce. Okay. So there's a lot of, just a recap, if different teams are on different platforms, it makes it harder for them to work together on things. There's one more thing I want to loop in real quick. So a lot of the time, there's a lot of there's many different business reviews, right? Harvard Business Review, Stanford Business Review. Many of them say different things. But one thing that business reviews come, and something that's substantiated by research over and over again, is one of the greatest places of innovation is the break room in your office. Okay. And the reason why is because this is where different people from different groups come together. So in other words, literally, we get better products, new products, competitive advantages. We get better ideas because of this break room. Okay. If you have everyone in different platforms, you're not going to have this as much. And I'll just give you a real example of this. So this is a merge request, right? So some engineers trying to get this new code in. You're not just going to get developer feedback in GitLab. You could be getting feedback from operations, from QA, from security. This is an example of how different people from different groups can now collaborate on your idea. Okay. So communication, once again, you will help people to work on the same page, avoid situations like this, where team A is building a bridge, it's too high. Team B didn't collaborate with team A on the same, team C didn't realize that the project moved in a different direction and that it's now a bridge. Okay, so this may seem like a cartoon, but it literally, when I was an engineer, around 20% of all of the code that I wrote wasn't used. And the reason why was because the project went in a different direction. Okay, so if you actually have everyone on the same page, you can avoid this situation. These people know what's going on. These people know what's going on. These people know what's going on, but they're not talking, right? So this is happening across businesses all around the world right now. GitLab is one shared table. When you get everyone on a single platform, you can solve this. Okay. All right. Can I help clarify anything, or we'll move on to security scanning? Okay. So security is a really big deal. It's one of our main go-to-market motions. We call ourselves an AI-powered DevSecOps platform, right? So it's very important for us to understand about how we add value in this security space. So let's talk about security. Most people are bad at this. So the way that I want you to think about it is, if you ask 100 people, do you wish that you had a higher level of physical health? Probably 90% of them would say, yeah, if I really were to think about it, like, I wish that I were healthier, right? But then you ask them, like, okay, what are you doing about it? And then most people sort of be like, a little bit uncomfortable, like, I'm not really doing very much about it. So like, that is what many businesses are like with their security. They know it's important, they value it, but when it comes down to it, they know that they're not doing as much as they could be around it. All right. Most people, what they do with security scanning is, and this is what happened with me when I was an engineer, is you work on a project for 9 months, you build the house, and then a separate team comes in and then they simulate the hacker. They bang on each window. They try to get in through the front door. They try to sneak in through like the second floor. All right. And here's the challenge. So then as a developer, I would get back a list of 21 things that I need to fix. Okay. Well, the challenge is, what are some of the challenges when you get feedback on the house that you built when the house is already built? Why is that a bad idea?
You probably could have saved a lot of time if you were aware of it earlier rather than later.
Okay. That's true, right? So number one, if you're telling me to fix something, I probably wrote it 6 months ago. Do you think I remember what I was writing 6 months ago? Probably not, right? Another thing, like exactly what you said, Jessica, if there's a problem with the foundation of the app, that might mean that you have to update 3,000 lines of code. All right, so let me give you an example. Let's just say that you built an app for Postgres 2.11. You have 3,000 lines that call Postgres 2.11. At the end, the security team says there's a vulnerability with Postgres 2.11. You have to update to 3.1 or higher. Okay, well, now you need to update 3,000 lines of code. So how do we actually solve this? How we solve this is every time you're submitting a merge request, we are going to go scan your code from a security perspective. We have all of this automation, okay? So what are we doing? We have scanners like SAST, Dash, container scanning, fuzz testing, API security, and it's just trying to simulate and give you real-time feedback on your security so that you don't build this entire house and then try to fix everything at the end, okay? So just to recap, we help out with security with number one, our security scanning. Number two, we actually have a lot of dashboards for showing people the problems that they have from a security perspective. So we not only give you the data, but we help you to action that data with our dashboards. Okay. Okay, cool. Anything jump out yet? Yeah, anything new, any surprises, or we'll jump into our last section. Okay, awesome. So I want to give you a quick tour of the product. All right. So here is my Google Drive. Okay. So imagine you have a team Google Drive. That's sometimes helpful, right? If you are a large engineering organization with engineers across many different all around the world, you probably need one place in which you're storing your code that's the single source of truth, like a shared Google Drive for all of your teams, just so that you stay on the same page, okay? So the first use case that we have is this thing called source control management or version control. What this is it's code storage, all right? So think like a big Google Drive for your code. Over here is GitLab code. You can see there's a bunch of folders here. There's some files here. And here's my code, right? Cool, awesome. So let me tell you a little bit more about what we do. Over here is our history view. Why is it called version control? Well, the answer is that we actually version all of the changes that are coming in. So 13 minutes ago, this change happened. 20 minutes ago, this change happened. 27 minutes ago, this change happened, okay? And then so sometimes you'll be solving an issue, and then let's just say customers started complaining about a real big slowdown in your app 1 hour ago, okay? Well, 1 hour ago, what happened? This happened, this change happened, this change happened, this change happened, okay? All right, so would this cause a slowdown in my app? No. Would this cause a slowdown in my app? No. This is too simple. Okay, so this has to do with, let's just say, how the database works. Well, that could definitely cause a slowdown in our app, okay? So what I can do now is I can undo this change. My app goes back to normal. My customers are happy. So in other words, part of the reason why we want version control is because we want the ability to go fix things quickly. All right, so GitLab not only is code storage, but we are versioning, okay? Okay, awesome. So the second thing is all the automation and the DevSecOps that we have. So just to go over what this looks like, let's just say you're writing new code, all right? No one can just like add in new code. Like some random person around the world can't just like add in new code. You have to request to merge in new code, all right? So all of this 1,651 merge requests, these are outstanding requests to add in new code, okay? So someone's adding in this new code, what's happening? Our CI/CD, which is automation, our DevSecOps, which is security scanning. All of this is saving people time and helping them to make sure that the code that they're writing is high quality. Okay, so just to recap, DevSecOps, automated security scanning, CI/CD, automation. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about is agile project management. So how many of y'all have a to-do list? I have my to-do list right here. Okay, so do y'all have like a pen and paper to-do list, like an online one, or do you not use one? What do y'all do for keeping track of things?
Just have one on my phone.
Okay.
Got it in my email.
Okay, cool. So what happens if you're a big, large business that has 1,000 engineers across 30 countries, right? Well, you might want to have a big to-do list for your business. And otherwise, people could start like, duplicating each other, right? So just like how my to-do list is like, go call mom, go pay this bill, get my car fixed, go buy a vacuum cleaner. This is a to-do list for engineers. This is change the login screen, update this color scheme, add in this new functionality, right? So this is like one item on our work queue. And you can see these are people who are collaborating. And then so because we have a single source of truth for what's happening in our business, an engineer in Poland, when they're logging off, they can say, hey, today I did XYZ. The next step is for someone to do ABC. Another team in the United States can now wake up and know where the ball's at, so they don't duplicate each other. Okay, so that's the reason why you want to have agile project management, a big online to-do list, so that your business can have a single source of truth for what's happening from a work perspective. Okay. All right, so where we're going, let's talk about artificial intelligence real quick. AI has fundamentally changed how we advertise and market our product. Okay. And to be fully transparent, AI is something that there was more enthusiasm around it than what we were expecting. Okay. So right now, where we are is some of our competitors have AI built into their product right now. What we're trying to do is we are trying to get our own version of AI in our product. All right. So we're partnering currently with Google to do this. And specifically, what we want is one of the main things is for artificial intelligence to generate code. So imagine, so it's like, give me a bash script that generates random numbers. So over here, I'm asking it to give me code. That's what we want in our product. We want a version of this where we can say, hey, like it's AI suggestions for writing code. Okay. So that's what we're doing. But what we want to be different about is having AI that runs throughout all of GitLab. Okay. So some of our competitors, they are really good at this AI that writes code. What we want is we want AI that helps out with all of our product. So AI that helps you with your project management, that helps you with your code, that helps you with your security, that helps you with your CI/CD. Okay, so how we want to be different is number one, really making sure that customers' data is secure. Number two, having AI that spans our entire product, but we're still working on this right now. Okay. And this is one of our biggest priorities for this fiscal year. All right. So that's like one of the things that we have working right now. Okay. All right. So Trisha, our taglines for a GitLab. One of the short ones, better software faster, more secure software faster. All right. Other two elevator pitches that we have, we are a best-in-class DevSecOps platform with functionality spanning all phases of software development and delivery. The future generation is going to be AI powered. Okay. So some people say we are an AI powered DevSecOps platform with functionality spanning all phases of software development delivery. So Stay tuned on that. That's going to depend on where our product is. Okay. You can also say something like GitLab is a consolidated platform for software development delivery. This means we try to do everything that GitHub, Jenkins, Jira, and CenterCube do all under a single user interface. So many different taglines, many different elevator pitches. The main ones that marketing uses right now is better or more secure software faster. So it depends on the persona. Okay. And we are an AI-powered DevSecOps platform. Okay. These two ones I use more in my sales conversations, but it's important for us to understand what marketing is saying. Okay. All right. Awesome.